Bishop Vann, thank you for welcoming us to the Diocese of Orange. For many years, we were blessed at Cross Catholic Outreach. You served on our board of directors for a number of years.
I did.
During your time, we applied to the Vatican to receive official recognition. As a canon lawyer, you were part of that process, and that was a successful application. I wonder if you could reflect back and tell us the significance of that designation, of us becoming a juridical person, and how it helps our mission to help the poor.
Well, canonically, a juridical person is an entity that has official standing within the body of Christ, and can then be involved in ministry, fundraising, all those sorts of things. So it really is an official recognition by the highest authority in the Church of the work of cross, that it's authentic.
The Catechism of the Catholic Church says the Eucharist commits us to the poor. To receive the body and blood of Christ, we must recognize Christ in the poorest, his brethren. It's a very powerful line from the Catechism about the poor.
Right. Correct. And Pope John Paul II would have been a part of the formulation of the Catechism of the Catholic Church, which really became the standard for our life of faith in these years. So that means that by receiving the body and blood of Christ, then we have to be aware of the body, his body and blood in the folks whom we serve and minister to see Christ in the Eucharist and see him in the poor as well.
The theme for this year's World Day for the Poor, which Pope Francis started a number of years ago, it's actually next weekend, is "For your sakes Christ became poor." That comes from 2 Corinthians. This solidarity with the poor, it's in the gospel, it's in the catechism. How do we make sure we have that in our hearts?
I think we had to make sure it's in our hearts by being, number one, aware of the poor and our neighbors around us who really struggle every day. And then to be aware of the Church's mission to the poor and all the opportunities we were given to serve the poor and recognize them. You know, St. Vincent de Paul said, I think it was like this, that if somebody came to the door during community exercises, they were to answer the door and serve the poor, because he also said the poor are our masters.
Pope Francis, of course, has written so much, so beautifully about the poor. He wrote about we should be encountering the poor. He says it's nice if we give a little money or give to our time, but we should be moving, that's our first step. What does it mean to truly encounter the poor?
Well, the sense of, I think, of encountering the poor really has had a long history in the life of the Church. As I just mentioned, the Vincentians and others who have served the poor over the years. So it means that it's just not a theory or on paper or just an idea, but it really means that who the poor are bring us the image of Christ, and we have to encounter them and know them just not as a name, but as a real person.
There are many secular charities in the world, and they kind of throw money sometimes at the problem of poverty, which helps temporarily, but it doesn't lead to lasting transformation in the lives of the poor. The Church has a different approach. It's called integral human development. Why is that more transformative?
Well, integral human development is, I think, a more recent expression, or one of the more recent dicasteries, but it is how people's lives can be transformed and changed so that the poor then are not just a name or a face, but really are a part of our lives.
Cross Catholic Outreach has 6 of our outreach priests that were commissioned by Pope Francis as missionaries of mercy. Can you reflect on why the mission of mercy is so important, and aren't we all called to be missionaries of mercy?
You know, the idea of mercy has really a long history in the life of the Church. For example, Pope John Paul II wrote an encyclical, Dives in Misericordia, the riches of mercy. That's why St. Vincent de Paul founded the Vincentians with the Daughters of Charity. So it's always been there, but I think now we have a chance to really know what this means, how we live that ourselves, and how it's not just a theory, but it's part of our lives.
One of the many ways Cross Catholic Outreach helps the poor in the developing world is by providing medical aid. I read that you actually worked in the medical field shortly before you went in the seminary. Talk about the Church's role in providing health care to the suffering.
The best thing we have to realize, one of the best gifts we have to realize in the life of the Church is how we take care of the poor and the sick and the needy, and how we have, that's part of our mission. So, you know, for example, in our hospitals, I walk sometimes in the evening, I see people around who really are sick. I have a group of deacon candidates that take care of the poor and the sick. So this has to be a part of our lives.
Jesus showed us in the gospel how much he loves children. And several years ago, Cross Catholic started a ministry. It's called the Box of Joy Ministry. I know you're familiar with it.
I
where
am.
Parishes can participate in packing toys for children. What would you say to encourage Catholic parishes here in the Diocese of Orange to participate?
Well, remember what it says in the rite of baptism, let the children come to me and do not hinder them. So to really be present and be available for the sick and suffering, but the young as well as the children. So to give ourselves an opportunity to really to do that when we have it. So it's a really part of who we are.
The church is undergoing the Synod on Synodality. What came out of the listening sessions here in the Diocese of Orange?
Well, let me frame it this way. The Synod on Synodality had a long history already prior to the Diocese of Orange. For example, we had a huge gathering from the Encuentro 2000. We had a pastoral plan that developed years ago, and then we had also then a strategic plan that involved hundreds and thousands of people to help plan the future of the diocese. So we have that dynamic already here. So I remember it followed the same thing with the Synod on Synodality, and what I heard from many of the folks was they were very happy and grateful to listen to each other and to be with each other in this monumental planning.
Few bishops have the opportunity to dedicate a new cathedral, as you did Christ Cathedral here I think it was in 2019. What do you recall about that day, and what has been the spiritual impact of the new cathedral?
Well, I think the spiritual impact, number one, the prior cathedral served the diocese well. It was the Holy Family Cathedral, but it was actually a parish church that became a cathedral, which was the custom at the time. By taking this venerable edifice here, we have now made a real center for Catholic worship and activity. On a given weekend, we have 10,000 people here for Mass in 4 languages. And this has become a real center for worship and gathering and prayer and all sorts of things for the diocese.
When we arrived today on the campus, we saw the Our Lady of Louvain.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about this. I understand you have a large Vietnamese population in the diocese.
We have the largest concentration of Vietnamese outside of Saigon here. So, and many of our parishes have many Vietnamese. We have about 50 Vietnamese priests. So the Catholic heritage of Vietnam is very much a part of the fiber of the Diocese of Orange. So they have a great devotion to Our Lady under the title Our Lady of Louvain. If you talk to many of them, and many of them that were here had been part of the so-called boat people, they will tell you that when they were kind of on the sea trying to hopefully find a place to land or to be, they would see her. So she guided them. So they have a great devotion to her, and that's why this shrine to her is really important to all of them, and to all of us too. I mean, it was one of the greatest days I had when I dedicated the shrine here.
Finally, Bishop, before we go, I have to ask you about this beautiful space we're in. We're on the 13th floor of the Tower of Hope. We're in what they call the Chapel of the Sky. Tell us about this space.
Well, depending on where I'm looking, I can see the Pacific Ocean there, or I can see Disneyland over there, or the San Bernardino Mountains with snow on them, given the time of the year. So this is a space that was specifically designed by Dr. Schuler, a place where people of different faiths could gather. So we have different faith gatherings. We have daily Mass here. It really is part of the hand of Dr. Schuler that built this chapel, and we converted liturgically to Catholic worship.
Bishop Vann, thank you for your time today, and thank you for your many contributions over the years to Cross Catholic Outreach.
You're welcome. I've enjoyed them.